There we go. I'm now recording.
Did you see Dennis requested recording permission in the chat?
No, I've got the screens up and everything else, but thanks. So that's Dennis P. Where is Dennis P? Wave your hand so I can see you. And you're not on that screen. Let's go on this screen. Dennis, where are you? I have no idea where Dennis is. Dennis. I'll try and find you, Dennis, and click.
Well, he put his hand clap up.
He's near the end.
It's different on everybody's screen. That's where the problem is. Trying to find Dennis. There's Denise. Jeff, Chris, Masako, Yolanda, Jay Lewis, Helen, Michael, Dan, Howard, Scotty. No, he must be on page 2.
Dennis P's in the lower right-hand corner of mine.
Got it. There we go. All right, so I'll be watching the door and doing, if I could just request that everybody except for Dawn mute themselves until the presentation is over, and then we'll open up the chat room again. And we're going to kick off. I'm going to start by introducing our presenter today, who is Dawn Wood. For those of you that don't know Dawn, Dawn is a long-standing professional square dance caller, calling from basic through, I believe, C1. Or are you doing C2 now, or just C1?
That is correct.
Basic through C1. He's nationally and internationally known. He's called all over the world. He's an accredited caller coach. He's a staff instructor at the Grand Square International Caller School, joint owner of Lumac Records Square Dance label, recording artist with, I think, well over 30 different songs I know, at least that I know of. And I can tell you right now, at least 15 of those were ones that were, when I started converting to digital were the first ones on my list. Dawn, I've heard Dawn being referred to as a dancer's caller. He's an innovator in both music and calling, and I could probably keep going on Dawn for about an hour, but I want him to talk. So I'm very pleased to have Dawn here today to talk about the principles of the invert and rotate process, the concept with modules, the how and the why. And hopefully Dawn will stick around with us afterwards to answer any questions. So
absolutely.
Over to you, Dawn.
Thanks, Mel. First of all, I want to thank Mel for allowing me to do this presentation, and GSI for presenting providing some of the material. I don't know how long all of you have been calling, but I've been calling for over 40 years, and a few years ago, I was asked to be on staff at the GSI calling school. And as I had taught my own calling school, I felt it was appropriate. Then I got the chance to be on staff, and oh Lord, did I learn things. I got to learn from some of the best in the business. And one of the principles that I think I inherently used but wasn't aware of it was invert and rotate. So I'm going to do a little presentation on invert and rotates. Anybody has questions about it, feel free to ask me and offline or at the end of the session. I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation and share my screen.
I don't think he's co-host, Mel.
He should
Can
be.
you see that?
No, it's not showing up on mine.
Bill, you have to set him up as co-host.
I'm going to move it over on this side. That's the
Hang
screen
on.
I'm on right now.
Try it again, Don.
He made Chris Jensen co-host, not Don.
No, I made Don co-host.
Doesn't show up here as Don.
Huh.
Not according to my list, Mel.
I don't know what's happening here just for a moment.
He's co-host now here.
You seem to be locked up for some reason.
Okay, let's try this.
I'm gonna go share screen here.
Yeah, we got it now, Don.
That's my screen, Don. But if you want, just say next slide and I'll click the button for you.
Well, I've got a new slide presentation, or it's
Okay, I'll get rid of that one.
okay. Let me see if I can get it back up. Can anybody see that one?
Not come
No.
Not.
Let's go on from here. No, there's nothing available?
Nothing
No,
here.
we see nothing.
Not.
Okay.
Okay,
Let's
try
go
it
ahead.
now,
I'll
Don.
go ahead and use yours, and I'll just talk through it.
Just try it one more time.
Wonderful. Click on the wrong one.
No luck?
Hold on just a second. Let me move it over here. I've got a dual screen, so maybe that may be what's interfering with it.
Yeah, I do mine on a dual as well. But...
Okay, well, it's not that much different from the one you've got, Mel, so we'll go ahead and use that. How's that?
All right, I have no idea what's going on because it says screen sharing is allowed, but all right, I'll bring that up.
Okay. You want to bring it up in screen mode, or you want to leave it there?
Can you all see that?
It would be better if you could do it as a slideshow so we just see the big slides.
Okay, let's try. I don't know why that. This is very, very strange. Let's try this. Let's reduce that. Okay. What's that?
Any luck?
Can't minimize. Okay. One, I have no idea what's going on, everybody. As I said, I'm not a techie, but I will do the best I can here.
You had it at one time, though.
Yeah, I know, and I don't know what's happened there. I've got my screen share, but it's got Janet's picture in front of it for some reason.
Got it.
I see the slide presentation.
You're there now,
There, now
Mel.
we got it.
There we go.
Okay. So to begin with, go ahead and click the slide if you would. This is a calling principle that we teach at GSI Caller School, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the school. The school, I'm sure many of you have attended one of them, but the school is presented every year 3 days before the national convention, and the instructors there are, I'm not blowing my own horn, but you know, you're talking about Tony Oxendine, you're talking about Jerry Story, you're talking about Jack Platties, you're talking about Bear Miller, and a multitude of others. And all of these people have spent a lifetime calling and teaching. So Jerry and Tony and Tony's wife Kim offer this school for free 3 days before, and they'll take up to 60 registrants, and I can tell you that's a lot. Basically, the school starts on 3 principles. You're either a basic caller, an intermediate caller, or a long-term caller, and you'd be surprised the ratings that people give themselves. Sometimes you can learn anything from any level. I know callers that attended all of them. It's one of the principles that are taught, and we're going to focus on this. So go ahead and hit the slide again, please. The concept is based on a corner box. This is a standard corner box if you had the head square through 4. There are certain prerequisites or presumed understanding. You've already begun to master flow, and that's a biggie. I thought I had a really good master of flow or understanding of flow until I got to call with Jerry Story, and then I found out I knew enough, but he knew a lot. And there's a lot of things to think about flow when you're calling. You know, it gets rid of the awkward bend the lines and other things. Also, it gets rid of, if you truly understand flow, it gets rid of the right turn all the time and spinning the ladies into the ground and that sort of thing. You have a clear understanding of definition, and it surprises me sometimes when we talk about definition to other callers that there are misconceptions, as you will, or misunderstandings of how the call is actually written and intended to be used. And I would encourage you to read your definitions on a regular basis, because as they are modified and changed with Caller Lab, etc., they begin to show new nuances and principles with them. I presume that you already have a number of corner box modules that you've memorized, whether they be from singing calls or other devices, but you've got in your toolkit, after you call a head square through 4, you have a number of return to corner box modules memorized. I'd also believe that you have conversions such as the magic module memorized, and some of your own. And as you move on through this, you'll start to develop some of your own modules that turn you back to that corner box, or do conversions from corner boxes to partner lines, etc. So you'll have a number of conversion modules in your toolkit as you get ready to do this. Go ahead and hit the slide, please. We're going to concentrate on some various modules. In this case, I presented 3 modules, just 3 for you to work with, because if you extrapolate the modules out in the 4 quadrants of the square, you have a minimum of 12 modules, the 12 modules you can use by using these modules in different variations and formations. So the first one is swing through, the boys run, and Ferris wheel, and centers pass through. That's a return to corner box module. The second one, swing through, spin the top, and slide through. Again, a return to corner box module. Or touch a quarter, scoot back, boys run, pass the ocean, girls trade, recycle. Another return to corner box module. So you'll find that kit starts to get bigger and bigger the more you use it. Each of these modules start from a corner box and return you to a corner box. Go ahead and hit the slide, please. So, simply stated, you could, if as a new caller, and I know most of you are not new, but new callers tend to develop their choreography from a singing call or known memorized modules. And they'll say the head square through 4, swing through, boys run, Ferris wheel, centers pass through, element left, come back, and then side square through 4, and yada, da, da. And we start the whole process again, and you go through it 4 times, and you've got easy pattern. Well, that works so long until the dancers get a little bored, and you as a caller probably get bored. So we want to expand that by using this invert and rotate concept. Okay, go ahead and hit the slide. Okay. Some of you, I'm sure, are thinking, that's cool. Let's do that. So for right now, you need to know one more module, and that's the basic standard invert and rotate module. That is to say, from a corner box, star through, pass through, bend the line, and star or slide through. That's the magic module for invert and rotate. That takes you from a head square through 4 to a side square through 4, but without calling an element left square, you're set and back home. So you've gone and rotated, you've rotated the square 1/4 and inverted the square from the heads to the sides. That's where it gets its name, invert and rotate, from. Then you begin to call your sequences. Go ahead, hit the slide. So we go back to our slide. We go swing through, boys run, Ferris wheel, center 4 pass through, and now we can continue without calling an element left. Swing through, spin the top, and slide through. Touch a quarter, scoot back, boys run, pass the ocean, girls trade, recycle, and I'm back to the corner box And now, instead of calling alum and left, I can move on to call star through, pass through, bend the line, slide through, and then I can take the same modules that I was using, and I can now, let's say in this case, we're going to reverse them. Touch a quarter, scoot back, boys run, etc. Girls trade, recycle, etc. So you can see we've already started to expand the number of calls we can use in a given pattern. So as we move on forward this, you can reverse change those in any direction you want, as long as every time you come back to the corner box, you call the module to get you from the rotation, invert, rotates. Or you can call a conversion. Everybody knows the magic module. Swing through, girls circulate, boys trade, boys run, bend the line, and we're back in a partner line. Touch a quarter, call them circulate, boys run, or left touch a quarter, call them circulate, girls run, and we're back into a corner box, and we can start the process again. Go ahead and hit your slide, please. You can see that this is the beginning to start you through a larger concept of modules. So for example, we've got star through, pass through, bend the line, and slide through as our conversion to the invert and rotate. What if we did touch a quarter, scoot back, boys run, pass through, and bend the line, star through? We've replaced that initial star through or slide through with that touch a quarter, scoot back, boys run, and a pass through. And we've got to the spot where we would be if we'd called star through and pass through. So we start building on that set of modules as conversion modules for the invert and rotates. Now, while we're talking about it, one of the things that we tend to see most is that rotation is always to the right. If you watch some dancers after they walk out of the hall that night, they're all leaning to the right. That's our fault, because we called nothing that was left turning. We didn't have the Ferris wheel going the other way. We didn't have some of the other calls working the other way. So that was one of the lessons I learned from Story, was that you can do much more with your flow if you only concentrate on using other calls that have better flow, and making sure that for every 2 or 3 calls that you do that rotate right, you put in 1 or 2 that rotate left. That makes the dance a more symmetric feeling, and you walk out of the dance feeling less tired. As I said, the magic module, you're going to begin to expand on that too. So it's going to be more than swing through, girls circulate, boys trade, boys run, bend the line. And you'll develop other modules for you that does the very same thing. And you might have some left-handed in there. It depends on what you like and what flows well with the dancers. You'll find new modules for the invert and rotate. For example, I provided one here. If you're in that corner box, heads, everyone pass through, heads cloverleaf and the sides square through 4. Now I've done an invert and rotate using different calls. And as you push your checkers and or use the various tools available to us, you can expand on those. What it builds out is you're not trying to become an automatic sight caller. Sight calling is an art. And I think Mel said it the last time that I was on. Lots of folks tell you they sight call. I think the most quintessential sight caller that I've ever met was a gentleman by the name of Bill Peters, who wrote the book on extemporaneous sight calling. But he explained it this way. Sight calling is just the fact that you've expanded your memory bucket, your get out bucket, and your transition bucket. All of those things you've memorized, and in between, you do a little sight choreography. You are not a straight A for one, step by step sight caller. No one is. Everybody uses some sort of module, some sort of technique to enhance their presentation. Go ahead and hit the slide, please. As your skills improve, these buckets, these containers that you have, they're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Sometimes you have to memorize, or sometimes you have to write it down. If you want to theme a particular tip that evening, or a particular call that evening, whether it's spin the top or cloverleaf or whatever, if you want to theme that, you have to write some things down. Some might be, let's say you wanted to do that cloverleaf theme. If you had from the corner box pass through and heads cloverleaf on the side square through 4, you've added that into your repertoire. Memorizing and selecting your primary couples. Nobody does this perfect, but it is important that you do memorize and write down your primary couples. That way that if you need to fall back on somebody, odds are that one of the 2 squares or 3 squares that you wrote down will be correct and you can fall back on them. You should not spend hours upon hours of trying to get yourself out of a situation. The dancers would much rather prefer that you call the Nalaman left, and if they can't do it, that's fine, promenade home. And you'll win a lot more than you will lose. And the last thing I want to say is I want to parrot Mel, practice, practice, practice. One of the finest callers I've ever met in my life was a gentleman by the name of Burl Maine. Burl came out of learning to call, and he went out and called his first big gig, and he wasn't well received. And it bothered him. He went back to his house and to his basement, and he practiced for 6 more months before he came out and out and called again. The first time they said it sounded like he had marbles in his mouth. He told me this himself. When he went back, he worked on clarity, he worked on diction, he worked on the things he needed to work on, and came out and became, for all intents and purposes, a star. Go ahead. You have to be the ultimate judge on your calling abilities. There is no shortcut. There is no magic. You have to sit down, push your checkers, study, and if you don't, it shows. So you have to sit down and study and practice, and depending upon what you want from it and what your God-given talent is, you can go a long way or you cannot. I point out here there's only a few festival stars, and I'm not so sure being one is the most important thing in the world. I think that the most important people in the world are the teachers, the ones that go out and expand our activity and do it well to dancers. And I would encourage you to follow one simple formula. All dances, all lessons, all teaching should be fun. It is not to go show them how tricky you can be or anything else. Make every workshop, every lesson a dance. Let the people have fun, because that's the only thing that's going to bring them out, bring them back. And in this day and age, after being cooped up for as long as we have been or will be, it's important that when you bring these people back, that they have a good time to keep them coming back and remember what they lost. If you follow those simple logic steps, you'll be as successful as you can be, and maybe want to be, and sometimes don't want to be too. You know, you go more than you want to be. You get booked every single night. I found myself in that situation a few years ago, and you know what? It became not fun. I much rather enjoy coming home to my wife or being with my wife and back home in my own bed at night. So you have to gauge your career by what you want it to be. Using tools like invert and rotate will allow you to expand, your calling to the areas you want it to be. Every caller I know uses some form of it, knowingly or not. And that includes all levels, from basic through challenge. We got to have a setup. And so whether that's square through 4 or we want to move it over to rotate it to the side so we can do whatever the case may be, rotary spin or whatever you name the call. It doesn't really matter as long as you know where you are at any given point in the square and you're not having them stand there and look at you like you must be from outer space. Okay, go ahead and hit my last slide, please. So I want to thank you for taking your valuable time and allowing this presentation. I do hope you found it to be a little helpful. If you'd like to contact me, you have my email address there. And please come visit us on LUMAC and R&D Records. We'd love to have you. Again, thank you all for listening. I hope it's been helpful, and I'm here for questions.
I have to unmute myself. I says, before we open it up for questions, a couple of people were asking about those specific modules. Could they have a look at them? So I'm just going to pull Taminations up here so that everybody can see it. And I'll go back to screen sharing. That should be up on screen share.
It is.
Okay, so the first one you said, which is the invert and rotate magic module, which was star through.
Yep.
You go ahead. I'll just type.
Pass through. Bend the line. Star through. And we've now inverted the sides on the outside and the heads in the middle.
That starts there. Corner box sides on the outside.
Right.
And that.
So you can see we started with the primary couple on the outside to the side position. We've rotated the primary couple, now the sides, or the heads, excuse me, around the corner to the head position. So that's the invert, is the sides went to the inside, the heads went to the outside, and the rotate was we turned the box 1/4.
Yeah. And for those that are following the module sequence, when we talk about the 5 foundation modules, this is the next foundation module for learning. So you've got your swing through boys run Ferris wheel, you've got your swing through girls circulate boys trade, boys run bend the line, you've got your touch a quarter all 8 circulate, and you've got your pass through wheel and deal double pass through first left next right. The 5th one is your chicken plucker. This is the 6th module that should go into every caller's box toolkit right at the beginning, at least in my opinion, because this is what starts really giving you the flexibility. And if you remember, without the invert and rotate, with those 5 foundation modules and 6 modules for a theme, that's 156 non-repeatable sequences that you can make of 3 sequences each. Add this one, we've now changed it up to 330 sequences that you can do without repeating. So this is a very important module. The next one you had, Don, we'll just reset. The cloverleaf module, you said that was simple. Somebody wanted to see it and write it down. So
Okay, the head square through. Then we had the heads cloverleaf and the sides square through.
okay, so I'll do the whole thing. So head square through to a corner box. And then the module.
And again, we've accomplished the invert and rotate at that point in point in the square. We've actually reverse rotated, if you'll think about it. We've come back one module, one quarter.
So if you guys want to unmute yourself, can you use the invert and rotate as a chicken plucker?
So, for example, if you did here a right and left through, go ahead.
Hang on.
And a pass through and a trade by, we've done a half of a chicken plucker. Now you can start plugging in your modules again. Let's say we want to get back to this. We're going to use the same module that we could use to get back to a corner box from our initial. So let's do a touch a quarter, scoot back, boys run, star through, and pass through. And we did a half of a chicken plucker, finish it with a trade by, and we're right back where we started. So we started with the chicken, we started with this box formation, moved it into a chicken plucker, called some calls, resolved the pluck, or we did a half a pluck as Jerry calls them, and then we brought it back to the 0 box. Questions?
I'm just going through any of the chats and messages that I got. So, no, those are all the questions I got.
I want you to also concentrate on some other things that you might do. Use of tags are really good for you. Let's do this. Same box, head square through 4.
Okay, explain what you mean by use of tags first.
Use of the call tag the line. It can open up a myriad of different things you can do as you expand on your ability to move the dancers, if you will. So let's do for this just a star through and a pass through, bend the line, slide through. Okay. Now let's touch a quarter, scoot back, boys run, slide through, or pass through, excuse me, tag the line all the way through, and the leads do a U-turn back and the others face in. We didn't need to have the others face in, but the idea is that as I did that, I took it from the rotated box back to the original 0 box, and I used tags. Don't let those calls get away from you. They're marvelous.
That's the rotated box after the basic foundation chicken plucker.
Right.
And it's not the chicken, the basic invert and rotate. And then rather than do the same kind of thing, you're just resolving using the tag from the tag to line, completed tag to line.
Right.
So if you look at that, you've got keep your side couples on the outside. That's what you want to do, is move them into the inside for the resolution. Is that correct?
Yes. And if you're not looking for the return to home get out like I just put, then keep in mind that you could start that from anywhere that you have a known corner box. And then you can use that as a transition box to a rotated box. Does that make sense?
Does to
You're
me.
awful quiet.
If anybody has any questions, unmute yourself and speak up. Don's here to answer them.
I don't have any questions, but I can say that I've actually kind of underused that up until the last 2 years. I've been calling now about 10 years. And, you know, I'm just amazed at how much better or how much more I've got to do, you know. Really helped, really works.
Well, if you're using the invert and rotate principle, and it's, again, Mel points out there's a whole list of things that you're going to have, and we're never done. You're never done learning. But at the end of the day, you're going to expand your knowledge and your repertoire on how this goes about several times over. And don't be afraid to keep learning. You can learn from almost anybody, but I think too often we get complacent and say, oh, I know it all. Well, you don't. I can guarantee you that, because I see I meet callers every day that know a hell of a lot more than I do. And they don't have to be calling for 40 years. They're guys that have got into the game, but maybe understand some of the nuances a little better. So don't be afraid to say, I don't know it all. Don't be afraid to study. And I'm going to leave you, or I'm not leaving you, but I want to challenge you to one thing. If you know who Marshall Flippo was, he was quite possibly the best crowd handler caller in the country. And I once attended a caller seminar with Flip. And he said this to our group. He said, you should be able to call a good tip, a solid tip with no more than 15 to 20 basics. And we had a caller of 40 years say that can't be done. Just can't be done. He said, you know, you don't have enough material. And Flippo asked him, he said, are you going to be at the dance tonight? And he said, yes. And he said, we're all at the dance that night. He said, watch the second tip, not the first, but the first tip is I'm introducing myself to them. He said, watch the second tip and then tell me what you think. And I saw that man call one of the best tips I've ever seen, and he never broke more than 15 basics.
Yeah.
That's where I learned you could circle 3. I didn't know that.
Don.
Sure.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Were you done?
Yes.
I have a question sometime too.
Okay, one question. I have said, at the beginning of your session, you said invert and rotate. The principle is based on the corner box. I have made the statement earlier, you can also invert and rotate partner lines, which this is what came up, changing it from a 1P, 2P line, one with their partner, to a 4P, 1P line inverted and rotated.
Exactly. Yes. It's the same principle.
Yeah. Did you want to expand on that at all, or just leave it at the corner boxes and that's something to develop for a later time?
I think right now, given the with the conversion modules and all the things they're in, I mean, the idea that you can employ this in a partner line, the only problem I see is sometimes, not always, but sometimes, a step gets left out and you end up with an out of sequence line and people think they're okay and they're not. So I think you got to be a little careful with it when you're using it. But there are so many opportunities to use these known formations. I entered a whole bunch of known formations, but you can, by using the partner line and the corner box and using either employing the invert and rotate on the line formation or the box formation, you can create so much choreography for you and the dancers that there's plenty to call a solid dance. The encouragement I wish you would look at is careful about always rotating to the right. Bring up Caminations again. I want to show you something that Story showed me.
Hey, Don, when you do that, can you show us some of the stuff that would make it rotate to the left? I mean, everything seems to rotate to the right. I mean,
Okay.
is there some
We can do
calls
that.
that will get you go to the left a lot easier?
How about do a right and left through? We got Caminations going. There you go. Dixie style. Boy trade. Boy run. Circulate. So you see that we rotated to the left. Okay, Ferris wheel, we're still going uphill. Centers pass through. Veer to the left. Tag the line. Face to the right. Bend the line. Do a right and left through. And we're right back in our corner line, our partner line. You don't have to do it every tip, but a little bit goes a long ways. And I want to show you something that Jerry showed me that I was doing a workshop on flow. And I thought it was a pretty good flow caller. Touch a quarter in here.
I'm just going to reset that so we can all see that.
Okay. Column circulate. Boys run. Touch a quarter. Now, I'm sure, I know that I am guilty of calling this sequence walk and dodge, partner trade. What was wrong with that? Everybody calls it. I've seen it in singing calls, everything else. The problem is the girl's position is being beat up because she had to back up, stop, reverse. It's not good. So let's do this. Do a right and left through. Past the ocean. Recycle. Now I'm right back to where my corner box was. We agree?
Right.
Do a left touch a quarter. Walk and dodge. Wheel around. You see how much better the flow was?
And
Just
from the other position, you could have done a reverse wheel around and had the same flow.
absolutely. If we went back to that zero box or that corner box, past the ocean here again. Recycle. What she's pointing out is absolutely true. Touch a quarter. Walk and dodge. Reverse wheel around. She backs up, he walks forward. The flow is intact at that point. But I know that you've all been out there and seen it. How many callers call that touch quarter, walk and dodge, partner trade? Horrible flow for the ladies, and we don't consider it.
Well, we learned to dance backwards in high heels.
Yeah, I can imagine. No, I can't really. I've never had to do it. But you see what I'm saying? So when you're writing your choreography, when you're developing your choreography, don't just think about the flow for you, the guy, or the number 1 man, or the number 3 man, or whatever. Consider the flow for everybody, and including the ladies, because we tend to screw them right into the ground, and it's not fun. You wanted another one, and I want to do this one, and then I'll get out of your hair. Past the ocean. Recycle. Now this is going to screw up the flow, but I'm doing it for a reason, just to be veered to the right. I would never call that. Circulate. Ferris wheel. Another example of the left-handed flow modules that you can use, and then do a double pass through. First go right, the next go left. Pass through and bend the line. And we use that technique, and please excuse that initial veer to the right. That was horrible, but I just wanted to get to a point. We use that technique. Here's where we've taken that 0 line, or that partner line, and done just exactly what Mel was talking about. We rotated it and created a new line. So you've got a multitude of things you can do with your choreography. It all boils down to some basic concepts. 1, you've got to know your calls and how the definitions work. 2, you've got to check your flow and check your calls and make sure things work. And 3, practice, 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 practice. You're not above practicing. I know guys that I've been doing this for 40 years, and I still practice before dance, if we ever get back to it again. So again, I want to thank everybody, and I hope it's been helpful. If I could be of any help, feel free to email me. I'll be more than happy to share anything I've got, anything I know, and I'll be happy to help you as much as I possibly can.
Now, Don, you said you had an updated PowerPoint presentation?
I do. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, if you would. I've got some notes and some of the choreography that you've mentioned as well. I'll send that to you to have a quick look over, and I'll post them when I post the video. I want to say thank you very, very much for coming in. There was a couple of comments, but just to summarize them, I think Dennis summed it up. Says, I have always been a sight caller, but I have to start memorizing and learning these techniques. And you're absolutely right, Dennis. It's not just the modules, it's the techniques. They will open a whole world to your dancers and the smiles on your dancers' faces when you do this kind of stuff.
Agreed.
Once again, Don, thank you very much for coming in.
You're
Thanks for spending the time. And the floor is open. So if anybody has any questions about invert and rotate or any of the other stuff, Don's here for a couple of minutes, I think, still. And pick his brains. That's what he's here for.
Alan's got his hand up.
Don, during these sessions, somebody mentioned, I don't know who, and it might have been Don Beck, that you can use your terminations to test your module to see flow by turning off everybody except the one dancer you want to follow, and it makes it easy then to see whether that dance is being impinged in any way by having to step backwards, forwards, sideways, etc., etc. And you can then very quickly see whether one lady is being unduly affected. And I think that's a great idea, to use terminations to check your modules.
Any tool that you have that you can actually see the flow and recognize the fact that, I'll be honest with you, if you want to know if you've got bad flow, ask your wife. She'll tell you at the end of the dance, because you've screwed her around in circles and everything else. So here's what he was talking about. You would get to watch the number 1 man, everything he's doing.
Hey, Alan, just on the side, I did ask Brad if he would consider putting paths in there so we could set a path to one person and watch how that one person went.
You can click on a path, a person, and show just that path. I don't know if they can do it in the sequencer, but I know they do it in the other part of it. So I'm sure the
Yeah, he told me that he had considered doing this in the sequencer, but he thought it'd look like spaghetti. And then I asked him if he could do it for like just one dancer or something like that. So it might be a little bit better.
Well, I can tell you this is one of the best tools out there to work with.
Right, so this is intentionally done, by the way, just in case you're wondering. This is what Alan and Don were talking about. Movements that sound together and work, and if you just read that sequence, sounds good, but just follow that yellow man there. Right, 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 right. That would be a lady caller doing that. If it's the men, you generally do that to the women, so pay more attention to it.
Now put the lady on, Mel.
I was just about to. Black.
Turn the man off.
But the lady, she's got a couple of left turns and a couple of side steps. But this is also what Don Beck was saying. When you do that, make sure you do it for everybody. Because it might work very well for one man or the head men, and the side men are going in circles. Or it might work very well for the head ladies, but the side ladies are going in circles. This particular sequence doesn't do that. It's a horrid sequence. It's done intentionally to show that. But the floor is open, everybody.
Yeah, we had a local, fairly new caller that used to. He was a reader caller, and he came up with a module that was something like I don't remember it exactly, but I think it was a walk and dodge and a bend the line, and it worked fine for everybody except two of the guys. Two of the guys were doing were backing up and then going forward again, but he didn't catch it because every time he danced it, he was dancing the part where he wasn't the guy that had to back up. So.
You know, one of the things that you should keep in mind is just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
That's classic, the walk and dodge and bend the lines. It's horrible for two dancers and it's not really, but they don't think about it because they don't know any better. That's why we introduce these kinds of things, the modules and invert and rotates and all the things that can do to help you make it easier and better flow.
And modules that help out on that, as long as, like you said, you just watch for things like that when you're figuring them out.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most common ones of that watching one side of the square is if you have an ocean wave, boys facing out. So you got boy, girl, ocean wave, and you got boys run, bend the line. You've got one running in, you got one running out. Great for one side, but it's horrible for the other. And that's usually what you're talking about, where you got that bend the line that goes forward.
Now that's awkward in anybody's language.
Yeah. I always go by if you run in, don't bend. You have to run out to bend the line.
Good rule.
Floor is
Yeah.
open. Anybody else have any questions, comments, queries, points? Anything else you want to pick Don's brain on? He is an accredited coach. He does the GSI school. They charge a fortune for getting people like Don to come in and do private sessions. So take advantage of it now.
I'll tell you guys, if you do get a chance to go to the Nationals when we get back up and running, and if you have never attended a GSI school, treat yourself. It doesn't cost anything. And you get to pick the brains of some of the finest callers in the country, around the world. I shouldn't say. There's people from Australia, there's people from England, there's people from all over that are teaching at the school. And they've all been vetted by Tony and Jerry, so, you know, they seem to know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I went to it in Kansas City when they had the Nationals here about 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, it's a great school.
And Don, you've got the GSI website that's got some seminars on from the Zoom caller school at the moment as well, haven't you?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. The GSI website's got
Yeah,
the caller school
they've got
at
the
the moment.
seminars and everything on the GSI website.
Hmm.
I won't say that everything is free because I'm not sure that it is, but I do know the 3 days before the Nationals are free. And please, if you attend, understand that you are not walking into a 3-hour course. You start on Wednesday afternoon, or excuse me, you start on Sunday afternoon, and you will go till 9 o'clock that night, all day the next night until about 9 o'clock, and a half a day on, you get up to a half a day on Wednesday before the Nationals. So it is a full vetted working schedule.
And you get homework too.
Oh, yes, you do.
Yeah, there's about
she's been there.
Yes, 6 times.
there's about 40 hours of actual classroom and then about 10 more hours of homework.
Every night.
Not every night.
It was every night. It depended on which group.
Work every night, but 10 hours total of homework.
Seemed like it. They're like, oh.
Well,
But it's worth
study
it.
right now is the perfect time because we've got, you know, we're kind of locked down. We can't do much of anything else. But I submit to you that the people that are doing the work to study and the people that are doing the work to learn and make this a better activity are the ones that are going to resurrect this activity as we get out of this mess. So keep on trucking, folks.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I thought I saw Randy Page in there a little earlier.
You're to be lauded, Mel, for putting this on. Not just this one, but all of them. I sat in on one before and I learned quite a bit myself. And then I got a chance to see Daryl Condon in his face close in person.
Don?
I think Daryl is in here somewhere.
Watch it, Don.
Oh, there he is. Hey, Daryl.
Don, that veer right that you didn't want to use, if you could pull Taminations back up, there's something that I've done that makes it less painful. Okay, heads lead right. And then just do a chicken plucker. And when you get back there, you're going to be able to veer right without any pain.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like as I said, when I put that in, I was just trying to get to a specific point to show the left-hand rotation. The whole point is that we will go out and call dances. In an entire 3-hour dance, we won't use any left-hand rotations. And then you wonder why the dancers walk out of the hall with the right-hand tilt.
My hip hurts if I go to the wrong caller.
I thought he got that veer right from you, Bob. Or is that one of mine? Well, I guess nobody has any more questions for you, Bob. Don. I've got, as I said, I pulled up a little bit of information from the Caller Lab description on invert and rotate. There's a few modules that you presented here. I've incorporated them into the list of just some sequencing modules. Dawn's presentation will be up on the website, up on Facebook in the newbie callers and the callers and training session. And when he sends it to me, as always, if you're not tuning in on Facebook or whatnot, but you're joining in through the various email chains that we've got, just send me an email, and when they come to me, I can forward them to you. So once again, thanks, Don. Much appreciated you coming in. I'm hoping next week we're going to have Betsy Gotta in here. She's going to be talking a bit about modules again, but also assessing the difficulty of your module, because a lot of callers write modules, but they don't actually look at the difficulty aspect of it. So Betsy's going to come and give us talk about that particular thing. And I believe we're going to get Steve Turner, who's another accredited caller coach. He's the only one there is in Australia at the moment, is going to be coming up to join us as well in a couple of weeks. So watch this space.
Mel?
Stay tuned. Yes, Jeff. Sorry.
Mel, I think
sorry.
Howard had a question. I think Howard had a question before. I'm not sure.
If you have questions and you're waving, remember there's about 50 people in here, and we're split between a couple of screens, so I may not see you wave. So unmute yourself and speak up. Howard, yes.
Yes. No, I didn't want to interrupt someone. Just a question. With the invert and rotate, is it possible to invert without rotating?
Sure. If you stay on your own side of the square, and you build a module for it, but of course, but I don't know the reason why we would.
Well, I can think of a couple of them just to make it more interesting. Like if you're from a zero box, and you star through and then touch a quarter and all 8 circulate, you've inverted the girls to the other side so that you can then do the half a chicken plucker to get back to a zero box with the heads on the outside when they started on the inside.
All right, say that again. What was your sequence again?
Star through or slide through and touch a quarter. All 8 circulate. Boy run around the girl. Swing through. Of course, boys trade. Boy run. Couples circulate. Oh, wait a minute. I screwed up. I didn't change the girls like I wanted to. Sorry. I'm thinking in my head, and I didn't take my nap this afternoon. But yeah, you could do that by just sending the girls over to get them changed out. But it just takes a little bit to do it. I just can't think right now how to get out of this mess. Yeah, that's one way to do it.
Corner box ocean wave.
Yeah.
It's to me an invert and rotate. The one that you did earlier on the left, I can't remember off the top of my head what you did, Dawn. But sorry, let's stop that.
When you did a star through, pass through, bend the line.
Well, I did a couple of them. For example, if you come and give me the corner box again.
So used to typing that I can't type square through anymore.
Touch a quarter. Scoot back. Boys run. Pass through. Bend the line. Star through. And then we've rotated the box 1/4.
This is what I wanted to look at. This was the comment that came up. You notice the sides are still in their original home position, more or less, and the heads are in their home position.
Right.
When we do a head square through 4, the heads are at home, the sides are at home. This doesn't actually change or rotate any of the dancers, but it changes the linear aspect of the dancers.
The quadrant, yeah.
Right. Well, the quadrant for the dancers is actually still the same quadrant they were in. All we've done is change the direction of that particular line. As the heads are still in their home position, the sides are still in their home position.
Oh, when you get to this point, yeah. But if you stopped at the other end, you would have.
Yeah, that's the rotation. I see Bob waving furious. I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head because you did a nice little module earlier that did this. They call this invert and rotate mainly because it changes that linear aspect. But the reality is this is just an invert because it's putting heads and sides and they're all still standing at home.
Well, and one of the ones that I use a lot from a zero box, if you put them back, just to get them in a different place, it's not really an invert, it's a rotation. Pair off. Or square through 4, whichever one you want to do. Swing through.
Hi, Masako.
Boys run. Bend the line. And then you pass through with a wheel and deal.
Yeah, that's a straight rotation module.
Right. Well, and the opposite of that would be to do a right and left through and then pass through with a wheel and deal. You know, from that before you get to that wheel and deal setup, if you bend the line and do a right and left through, and you pass through with a wheel and deal, and double pass through in cloverleaf, that's an invert. And it's square through 3. And then you've inverted and rotated it to the right again.
Yeah, Mel, I do want to comment on one quick thing. I just want to clarify something. Yes, I am on the GSI staff. I am working on my Collar Lab Collar Coach accreditation. I have not completed the course yet.
Oh, I thought you
I
already
did, however, complete the course for the ACA accreditation. So just to be clear.
I thought I knew you were an accredited collar coach. My mistake, but
no, not to worry about it. I'm working on it.
I figure I look at it this way. Anybody that's going to spend that much time helping callers learn how to call and be better at their craft, I don't care what kind of letters you put after your name. I'm going to listen to what you got to say. And you've been doing it for a long time, so I appreciate it.
And there's a lot involved in getting that accreditation, so it takes a while to get there. So we appreciate the effort.
How about a short?
In place, I just got to wait for when there's a really Collar Lab convention.
How about a short module that'll invert rotate? I do believe off the top of my head.
Hang on, Daryl. Let me just reset it. You want to start in a box or a line?
Oh, we got to do it that way. We'll start at a static square. How about that?
Perfect. That's where we're at.
Okay. Heads turn through.
I use that one too.
Do you now? Oh,
Yeah,
did you say it earlier because I came in late?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Separate round 1 to a line.
I always have trouble with this. Yay, it worked this time.
Okay. Star through. Circle 4 halfway. Okay, do a right and left through.
Same thing. Some of the things don't work well in Taminations, but I know
So
exactly
I
what you're saying.
noticed.
It would probably be a circle left halfway.
That's possible.
Nope.
Well, the combination works anyway.
Yes.
I believe if you'd have put as couple circle halfway, it would circle. Yeah, it might have gone, but I don't know. I used that same one, but star through, and then I just passed and bend the line, and it's inverted at that point when you then do the star through.
I think the neat thing is you guys, everybody here is thinking now about how could I do things a little different.
Thank you, Larry. A comment that is here, Barry Wanson, where are you? Raise your hand and wave. He's in there somewhere. Barry is the chief editor, cook, and bottle washer for Behind the Mic magazine, which is becoming a very, very popular international callers magazine. He's planning an article on using checkers in the future. And if any of you have photographs of some of the checkers, some of the unusual checkers or different ones that you use, just take a photo and send it to him as a JPEG, Barry.
Yeah. JPEGs work better.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I don't know who was speaking there, but.
That was me.
Oh, okay.
JPEGs are fine. I'm after photographs of some of the more unusual ones. Years ago, I was at a caller school in the States with Bill Davis, and Bill Davis at that time had a collection of some. A lot of them were people used toys. One of them had 8 robots in it, but I thought one of the funniest ones of the whole lot was 8 small, about 3 inches high, naked men and women. There were parts missing, but they were very interesting and different. That's what I'm after.
You still got
not
those,
naked men and women, but
you still got those little dogs and little cats that we did up as checkers for the caller school that one year?
Yep, I've still got those.
You need to rob the Monopoly game and get all those little toys that you use for moving around the Monopoly board.
Yep.
At one national, we used shot glasses, but we forgot to fill them up before we tried them. We already used new ones.
Then you could definitely create a new resolution game.
When I had an office job, I used to work on choreography at lunch, and I would take large paper clips and small paper clips and put little pieces of paper in them with little arrows and numbers. And then if I overstayed my lunch and my boss came in, I would flick my fingers, and it just looked like a few paper clips on my desk.
I was going to say, getting back to the shot glasses, that sounds like an after party thing.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds like callers getting together after a dance on any night that ends with the letter Y.
Correct.
One more before I leave.
Here, Daryl.
And this goes back to what we did a couple, 3 weeks ago, whatever. Head couples pass through. Cloverleaf.
Has he fixed that yet? Yes.
Double pass through. Leaders trade. We didn't change that would, never mind. We rotated a half. I find those quite useful, particularly in singing calls.
Oh, that was the comment that came in earlier that I was going to mention, Don. Invert and rotate. They're saying one of the main reasons for it is to set up that right-hand quadrant if you're sight calling for the Alaman left, right and left grand, short promenade homes, or for singing calls, if you're doing singing calls, to set it up into that right-hand quadrant so that you get a shorter distance to travel. That was the one comment that was.
Well, this sets up nicely for your 8-chain 4. It's for your, if you've got to load the boat figure, if you've got to relay the doozy, anything that rotates a square by half, 180 degrees. These type of setups ahead of the action seem to help. Okay, with that, I have to go get dinner on. Nice seeing everybody. I wish I'd have got here a little quicker. I missed out on a lot, I know.
Hey, Daryl. Say hello to Yvonne.
Oh, she's sitting right here. Say
Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, Don.
Hi, Don.
Okay. Be safe, my friend.
Catch you guys later. Bye-bye.
I'm with Daryl. I've got to go take care of some business.
Well, we appreciate you coming in, Don. Thanks, and you're welcome back anytime. Anything else you want to present? Just send me an
Mel,
email.
I sent you the new presentation, and have a look at it. There's just a few minor changes.
Yeah, it just arrived, actually.
Mel, you know you're still on screen share?
No, I'm not.
Take care, all. Thank you so much.
Bye, Don.
See you, Don.
You bet.
Bye, Don. Thank you.
Thank you. Record course.
When it comes to those modules, those invert and rotate, what I've learned is if you take all possible arrangements or for situations that arise in a HN through formation and try it out there, you'll find some very interesting things you can do with that invert and rotate besides just having a corner box to a corner box conversion.
Absolutely.
So if you say I have a corner box, then I call right and left through, and then I do that invert and rotate and see what I have. This goes with a lot of modules. Just try the invert and rotate when you do a heads lead right or a sides lead right or something, and see the result. And often these modules have a second or a third purpose where you can use them for the dancer's enjoyment. And dancers are not stupid. If you too often use the same module in the same situation, they know it. They recognize it and they know what you want. And they know that the next call is an element left. But if you use the same thing from a different situation, like from a lead right box, and you know what's the result of it, then you fool your dancers.
Yeah. That goes in what Don was saying. New callers starting out might use the same sequence in a singing call as their patter. Then they introduce the modules by introducing this invert and rotate, mixing it up with a chicken plucker. As long as you're working the corner box to corner box system, you're not going to go wrong, and it feels like an entire new dance to the dancers, even though it may be old hat to you. Excellent point, Guido. I posted the presentation that Don's just sent me, as well as the notes that we were talking about. They're not the notes from his presentation. It's an excerpt from the Color Lab presentation with a few of the modules that were mentioned here today, as well as a few other ones that Don and I were talking about for invert and rotate, to have a look from both boxes and lines. As always, if you want to get a copy of those, or if you don't go onto Facebook or can't download it from here, just send me an email and I will happily send them out to you. So the floor is open for discussion on anything.
Can we say good night, Mel? Many thanks, and good night to everybody else there too.
Good night.
Okay.
Good night, Simon.
Take care, Simon. As I said, we got Betsy Gotta coming up hopefully next week. She's going to be talking about some very difficult topics, and we've got Steve Turner is going to be coming in to do a couple sessions or a session with us. And as always, if anybody has anything in particular that they want to look at, anything in greater detail or anything you think would be of value, send us a line. We'll see if we can get something to cover. I am by no means an expert on all of these topics, and I will try and find the people that are experts, or at least know what the hell they're talking about, that know it better than I do, to come in and present for you.
Betsy, what are you going to be covering?
I'm going to be covering degree of difficulty when you're writing modules.
Oh, good.
That's why I laughed when he said I was going to be covering difficult topics.
Oh, well, I didn't catch the topic, so I didn't catch.
I knew what I was working on, so I got the joke right away.
It was a segue.
It was a
Good segue.
That was excellent, Mel. Excellent.
I've written on a segue.
So, I know we've been doing a lot of stuff for newer callers. Are we going to do, somebody had mentioned something earlier today, maybe I didn't catch it right, something about doing something with people who are starting to call challenge level and some of the intricacies of moving into that field, because I know I just started calling C1 not too long ago, and I know there's a lot more I need to learn about.
Yeah, that was Barry. That was in Don Wood's presentation. He was talking about memory techniques and the psychoanalysis of memory, memory level 1, memory level 2, what's short term, what's long term, how the process works. And what he was saying was, as far as learning C1, it's actually your very, very short term rote repetition memory. You would think it would be pulling up stuff and analyzing, but you actually have to learn it by rote and reteach it as a long-term memory, whereas by the time you get into C2, you're flipping it over, you already know everything by rote. Fundamentally, it should be the other way around, but it's not, and that's what he was making the discussion on.
Oh, okay.
I am more than willing to host something on that, Terry, but I cannot present on challenge. I only call up to A1. That's my own choice.
Right.
I am more than willing to host anything. If you have a topic, you want to pick a time or look at that, by all means, we can do it. I try and schedule these sessions so that they're designed for new callers to make the maximum.
Oh yeah, and I understand that.
It's the new callers to get the maximum value out of the material, for more experienced or journeyman callers to improve their techniques, and for the really experienced callers to actually take a step back on how to use this type of material to mentor new callers. So that's the focus of how these things are structured. More than willing to host or accommodate anything that you talk at or look at.
Well, and I agree that this venue and the newbie callers is for the newer callers. Maybe in the class program Ted Lazat's doing, we might actually have a session in that venue. So I've just, I've been calling. Actually, I started calling C1 a long time ago, but just in the last year, I've gotten a chance to actually call it on a regular basis until we hit this pandemic. And now I'm trying to learn C2 so that I can get a little bit better with my C1 calling. So it's just like my brain is fried, so I can't think anymore.
I don't know. I think you have to go back to the basics.
Well, and I'm going to...
I'm talking about on C1. You need to go analyze the doggone calls, say what they do and what they accomplish, and then you'll know where and how to use them.
Well, and I do a lot of that now while I'm, I'm wanting to learn to dance C2 because I'm at that point where I'm wanting to learn something new to dance. And luckily, Don Moger's doing a C2 teach, which I'm excited about because we don't have a class anywhere in the area, even when we are dancing. But yeah, I go back and I look at all the calls. I try to figure out what it does, who moves where, what dancer moves what they're doing. And it's just, but the degree of difficulty might help me a little bit in trying to figure out how my choreographies, because I did some sequences at the convention we had here, and I didn't think they were that hard, but then Ann goes, that's very difficult. So I need a little bit more understanding of what makes it more difficult.
Were these C1 sequences?
Yes.
Or?
Yes. They were C1 sequences. And I didn't think they were that hard, but apparently
Terry?
they were. Yes.
Have you looked at the virtual dancing, or have you danced at the virtual? Et from Baltimore, I've been dancing with her, and she's very good at explaining, and it may help you with your calling of C1.
Right, and I've been doing some. I do some haven't danced with her yet, but I have danced with Dale and I've danced with Don, and so I'm doing some C1 dancing with some different people, and I like Dale does a pretty good job of workshopping a certain call that kind of helps, but it's a process, and I'm just trying to make sure I dot all my I's and cross all my T's to make sure I'm a better caller. So.
Well, see if you can have a look at Et's site.
I will.
But
I
if
will.
you want-
Right
if
now,
you
I
want
have
to
so
go
much
on
stuff
Et's,
going on.
If you want to go on Et's, you have to email her because
Yeah.
she's careful
Yeah.
of who comes in. But it's been helping my calling as well
Has
because
it?
it's making me
Okay.
think more. Mm.
Well, I'll check it out.
I like what you were saying there, Betsy, about the degree of difficulty in those aspects, primarily because going back to basics and looking at the degree of difficulty with a basic module is the same process in principle as looking at the degree of difficulty at a plus, an advanced, or even a challenge module. Just understanding how it works and how the movements work, looking at that degree of, and why it's easy for a caller, but why that particular thing might be difficult for a dancer. So I'm really looking forward to your presentation next week.
Here in the States, even at Challenge, there are things that are accepted as the way to do it, and there are things that are less normal, and the less normal applications will be harder, period, end of sentence.
Right.
C1.
Well, one of the things I did learn that I've gotten a little bit better at, before I used to just stack all the C calls, and now I've learned to break them up with some more flowing calls, like, break it up with a swing through or something else to try to get better flow in there to make it not seem as hard. So I'm working on that part of it.
Well, you've now changed it up to C7 because you're calling C1 and C2, but using the basic program to get there. Ooh,
Oh.
That's difficult. That was humorous sarcasm, by the way. It was intended.
That's okay. Listen. Anytime I start a new class, I don't care what program it is, and I don't use the word levels, I use programs. No matter what program it is, I make sure everybody understands the fundamentals and all the aspects of all the basic calls, because that's what the whole dance is built on, are those basics.
Yeah.
And if they don't understand those, they're going to have a hard time at the other program.
And that's part of what we have to work on when we're teaching. When I was teaching for Times Squares and I was teaching Plus, I used to have what I called the mainstream highlight. And sometimes they were basic calls, but the point was there were calls that I needed to teach at Plus that involved calls from basic and mainstream that I was not comfortable with how well the dancers were going to do those calls. Therefore, how could I compound them by adding the Plus call? So I went back and reviewed and did some little DVD on the mainstream and basic, which is what I wanted the dancers to do in the first beginning.
Right. Well, it's just like, you can't do spin chain the gears unless they really know how to do spin chain through. So.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can see a venue required, maybe even different session or a structure session some other time for dedicated to higher level calling, higher level teaching, and teaching the higher levels to dancers and to callers. So that's something, Terry, you may end up becoming one of the hosts of these sessions yourself.
Well, I mean, I have a professional account. I could host a session. I couldn't teach it.
Yeah. This is why I bring in people like Dawn and Betsy.
That's right. Or Barry or Vic or Ann Ubelak or any of those that are calling up at those higher levels that really know what they're doing.
And like I said, when I wanted to structure these as an interactive discussion, but it to try and hit the 3 tiers of learning as a new caller, improving as a journeyman, and then mentoring as an experienced caller, which is what this is programmed for. And I agree with what a few people have commented, what Janet put there in the thing, in the chat. this needs to be kept down. We get into these side discussions. This happened in one of the other chats, that the side discussion was all Challenger A2, and there was only 6 callers that actually danced that out of 50 that were in the session. And it was, you know, things like that do happen. So if they do happen, but that's what callers do. Callers discuss what callers think. So if there's a need for it, let me know, and I'll see if I can find something or find someone to host it for you.
I can tell you that one of the things I wish when I had started learning how to call, I wish we had had this kind of format then, because it probably would have made life a lot easier.
Yes.
We get that a lot.
So all the newer callers out there, y'all are really blessed with the venue that we have for you to get this information in a way that you couldn't have gotten before. So it's really good.
And one of the bigger advantages or disadvantages is when you finish the session and you got the copies of the notes, you can take them home and read them, and you don't have to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning with shot glasses on the table to figure out your choreography, right, Holly?
Depends how much fun you want to have.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really, these are really good for me. I've gone, like I said, I've gone to 6 national GSI caller schools, but I didn't start calling. The first 2 years that I went, I was so overwhelmed, I didn't think I would ever be able to be a caller because it's so overwhelming those 3 days. This format has really works a lot better, and it's reinforced what I did learn at those caller schools, but I think it takes both. This type of learning and a school.
What's nice about these sessions is you spend an hour or 40 minutes on the topic to take it down, or one aspect of a topic, and then you spend another, what did we start at 9? It's 10:30, another hour and a half just talking about what we were discussing. And that's usually something that is left out, is being able to, excuse the expression, but pick the fly shit out of the pepper on some of these topics, which is something that is really needed to do sometime.
Well, it's nice to be able to go back, watch the video, look at the notes, and go over it and over it. Because when you're at one of those schools, it wasn't, those weren't taped or anything. And you're like, it's just so much information. You can't take it all in as a new caller. It's too overwhelming.
Brain overload.
And speaking of recording, I'm going to stop recording now because these things get to be over 100 megs in size and take forever to process.